A bunch of massive changes is happening at Warner Bros. Right now, and one of the biggest is the doubling down of superhero movies and also the opening of a brand new studio called DC Studios, which will be responsible for pushing out all future movies under the brand of DC. Now, I was actually under the impression that DC Studios already existed previously, but apparently that is not the case. Up until this point, Warner Bros. Has just been pushing out movies and there never really has been any direction to them. Now, the fact that there was no direction was also very clear. Most of the movies were just rushed out and pushed out. The Justice League was a good example of this. That movie was never ready, but they just moved forward with it due to all of the success that Marvel and Disney were getting with the Avengers, even though they were spending years building up their story. Now, with DC, it was very clear that they had different storytellers telling different stories, and in some cases the timelines would not even be consistent. They had different Batmans in different timelines, they had different Jokers that existed and was running around, and even with the Harley movie, it just seemed like it was not really fitting in anywhere. Now, I will defend them a little bit here by saying that these movies do not have to overlap with one another just because Marvel did it that way, but I do also understand why WB now want to have a single vision for their movies. Now, with all of that said though, WB is going a lot further than just one vision for their movies. They are actually trying to push out 4 different mediums of content, and all of that is going to fall under one banner. Now, first of all, by this point, we all know that their main driving force is going to be movies. It is the single biggest priority for DC, and it is probably not too hard to understand why. But James Gunn also said that there is going to be a massive focus on animation. Now, DC has always had great animated series and movies, and now they are just going to double down even more on that. Not only will they be focusing more on animation, but James Gunn even said that these animated movies will actually tie into the canon when it comes to live action movies. Gunn is quoted by saying that the DCU will be connected across film, animated series and also TV. Now, one fan asked him if this meant that TV and animation will be live action canon. James Gunn responded by saying yes. Now, this is not the worst idea in the world and is probably something that will be welcomed by many people within the community that is fans of superhero movies and just overall the superhero community. If you want more people to watch your animation or read your comics, there is no better way to do that than just by trying to write a very popular live action movie or film and then tie all of that together with your animation and with your TV series and also with your comic book writings. There is no better way than to get the community more involved with animation and TV series and comics than tying movies together with that. Now, one Twitter user did also ask for more clarity. They asked Gunn if this means that animated movies will tie together with the overall DCU, and Gunn once again confirmed by saying that it would. Now, one interesting thing that Gunn said was that games is also going to tie together with the DCU. Now, video games are a massive market. They might actually be bigger than movies, and thus I do understand why DC would want to tackle this market even more. Superhero games is also massive, with Batman and Spider-Man being 2 of the most successful games of all time. Now, there is a real opportunity here for DC to do some great things with the titles that they have, and also to create some truly amazing gaming experiences, and then also tying all of that together with the DCU is definitely going to be an interesting approach. Now, I do not think that DC or WB themselves will be making these games. Usually how it works is that WB licenses the gaming rights out to other studios, and then those studios will be producing the games. Lucasfilms right now is doing the exact same things, and they are providing a very good approach. Lucasfilms has rented out licenses to both EA and Ubisoft, who right now are busy making a lot of games for the company. Marvel, on the other hand, has also rented out some of their IPs, although that has not been so successful. They do have Spider-Man, but that IP is owned by Sony, so that does not really count, and the licenses that they did try to rent out, like the Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, they just horribly failed to meet any of the expectations. So if DC wants to tap into that market a little bit better, there is definitely a real opportunity for them. Now, I did say here that there is going to be 4 legs when it comes to the content that DC wants to focus on, and the last leg is probably not going to be a surprise for anyone, and that is comic books. James Gunn said very open communication. As everyone knows, I'm a huge comic book fan, and I hope everything we do will lead to more people reading DC comics and vice versa. But Peter and I are not in charge of comics, just all film, DC and entertainment. Now, even though he does say here that he's not in charge of that portion of the media, he will still be working with comic book writers to tell a story that is more consistent with what the DC universe is doing, and I am sure that most writers are probably going to be on board when it comes to working with James Gunn and to try and write some of his vision in the comic books. There is only going to be upside to doing that. If DC pushes out extremely popular movies and then that movie's lore gets tied back to comic books, more people are obviously going to be drawn to that comic books to find out what the next lore is going to be, and that will result in just much better sales for everybody. So I am sure that many writers will probably be on board with that approach. A very good example of a TV show and a movie getting tied in together is Peacemaker. A very big reason why Peacemaker works so well is the fact that it tied directly into Suicide Squad. The movie ended with Peacemaker coming back to life, and that connection between the two led to the movie fan base now going over and supporting the TV show as well. And if Peacemaker were to make an appearance again in a movie, you can be sure that fans of the TV show is obviously going to be there to support the character in a new movie as well. Now, DC has always had these sorry excuses for CW shows, but they were never really acknowledged by Warner Bros. Movies. Now, however, any series that comes out will be linked to movies going forward. Last week, it was actually rumored that Henry Cavill's return would actually include TV appearances, similar to how Ezra Miller and Jason Momoa both made appearances in Peacemaker. Now, I am not too sure about Henry Cavill's appearance specifically in TV shows. James Gunn was very quick to respond to those rumors, pretty much saying that it was nonsense, but I do see some smaller movie characters eventually making appearances in TV shows or even getting their own TV spin-off shows completely separate from the movies. But of course, with those TV shows still tying into the movies and also vice versa. Now, I personally have never been a big fan of superhero series, with the exception of Smallville. I feel like they just always turn into the villain of the day type of show, and that is just not something that I'm always that interested in. There are a few good series like The Punisher and even Daredevil, but there has also been enough disappointments for me to pretty much draw the conclusion that most of that genre might not always be the best. Again, there is exceptions to this. There's quite a few exceptions that I can point to, but there is also a lot of disappointments that can be pointed to. Overall, there is a lot of potential for DC, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do going forward.